1 second. Right, I believe we have some footage that has been taken on a mobile phone. Let's have a look at it.
The afternoon had been ordinary. Tourists walked the hexagonal basalt columns, waves rolled steadily against the cliffs, and guides repeated the familiar story, that this strange landscape was formed by volcanic eruptions nearly 60 million years ago. Others preferred the older explanation, that the giant Finn McCool built it as a bridge to Scotland. Then a tourist launched a drone for a better angle of the coastline. From above, the causeway looked as it always does, geometric, ancient, immovable. The camera drifted slowly across the interlocking pillars when one section of rock near the cliff face began to shift. Not crumble, not collapse, shift. A single slab of basalt eased outward in a controlled, deliberate motion, revealing darkness behind it. For 11 seconds, a hollow chamber stood exposed where solid stone should have been. On the ground, several witnesses felt a faint tremor beneath their feet at the exact moment the opening appeared. Some pointed. Others simply stared, unsure of what they were seeing. Before anyone could react, the slab slid back into place, aligning perfectly with the surrounding columns as though it had never moved at all. Before we go deeper, take a second to like and subscribe. You'll want to see how this unfolds. When investigators later reviewed the footage frame by frame, they expected to find a trick of perspective or a structural fault. Instead, sonar imaging detected something far more unsettling, a void behind the basalt wall. And inside that void were upright forms. The scans revealed several tall, narrow shapes, arranged in even intervals along the chamber floor. Their proportions resembled human figures, but their height exceeded that of any known ancient population. They were not scattered randomly. They stood in a line, evenly spaced, as though positioned with intent. Geologists studying the data noted that basalt does not naturally harden around vertical objects unless those objects were already in place before the lava cooled. Additional thermal readings suggested rapid solidification inside the cavity, consistent with molten rock sealing around whatever stood there. If the chamber formed during volcanic activity, then anything inside it would have been trapped in an instant. Officials were quick to dismiss speculation, calling the formation a natural anomaly and declining to release the full sonar scans. Access to the precise section of rock was quietly limited in the days that followed. Publicly, nothing unusual had occurred, yet sensors placed near the site recorded faint, rhythmic vibrations behind the sealed wall days later, subtle pulses traveling through the stone in slow repetition. Some experts attributed them to geological stress. Others admitted the pattern did not resemble typical seismic activity. The Giant's Causeway has always stood between myth and science, between the story of a sleeping giant and the certainty of volcanic history. But what unfolded that afternoon introduced something neither explanation fully accounts for: a stone surface that moved with intention, a hidden chamber where none should exist, and figures standing silently within it. Whether the event was geological, mechanical, or something older than either explanation, one fact remains unchanged. For 11 seconds, solid rock opened, and whatever stands behind that basalt wall has been there far longer than anyone imagined. The pyramid. It isn't where you expect to find a pyramid. People travel to Egypt for pyramids. They expect them in Mexico. But few imagine stumbling across one in the Scottish Highlands, rising quietly from a wooded hill inside the Balmoral estate. Yet there it stands, a 41-foot granite pyramid, sharply defined, perfectly proportioned, and strangely out of place against the rolling green landscape. There are no grand roads leading to it, no dramatic signage announcing its presence. To reach it, you walk through dense forest, across uneven ground, until the trees thin and the structure suddenly appears ahead of you. The first reaction for most visitors isn't awe. It's confusion. Why is this here? The official explanation is simple. Queen Victoria commissioned the pyramid in 1861 after the death of her husband, Prince Albert. His passing devastated her. She entered a prolonged period of mourning, wore black for the rest of her life, and preserved his rooms exactly as he left them. The granite pyramid, historians say, was one of several memorial cairns erected on the estate to honor him. On paper, that sounds straightforward. But the setting tells a more layered story. Surrounding the pyramid are 10 stone cairns. Cairns have long histories in Scotland, often used as territorial markers, memorials, or even ancient burial indicators. When researchers compared their placement to older estate maps, they noticed something intriguing. The cairns do not appear randomly positioned. Some suggest their alignment corresponds with specific sunrise points during certain times of the year, a feature more commonly associated with prehistoric ritual landscapes than Victorian monuments. Whether intentional or coincidental, the arrangement adds a quiet complexity to what is usually described as a simple tribute. Visitors frequently comment on the atmosphere. Even on mild days, many describe the hilltop as unexpectedly cold. A few hikers have reported unusual compass behavior near the structure, with needles drifting or briefly spinning off true north. Compass interference can happen in areas with natural magnetic variation, particularly in regions with granite bedrock, but no detailed public study has ever addressed these specific claims. What also draws attention is the pyramid's condition. After more than 150 years of highland wind, rain, and winter frost, the granite remains remarkably intact. The edges are still sharp. The surface shows minimal erosion. Granite is durable, but the preservation has surprised some geologists who note the precision of its masonry and the quality of its stonework. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt, there is no mystery about when this one was built or who commissioned it. Records are clear. Construction dates to the early 1860s. It was created as a memorial to a beloved husband. And yet, standing before it, deep in the quiet of the forest, it doesn't feel like an ordinary monument. Perhaps that feeling comes from context. A grieving queen, a remote hilltop, an ancient landscape layered with history long before Victoria's time. Or perhaps it's simply the striking geometry of a pyramid where no pyramid seems to belong. Whatever its true significance, the structure remains there today, silent, symmetrical, and solitary among the trees. A Victorian memorial shaped like something far older than the empire that built it. The tombs that sealed themselves from the inside. High above the Mediterranean coast of modern-day Turkey, the cliffs of Myra rise in sheer walls of pale stone. From a distance, the rock face looks almost architectural, as if an ancient city has been frozen halfway between earth and sky. Rectangular openings line the cliff in neat rows. Carved facades resemble doorways, windows, even small temple fronts. It feels like you're looking at a hillside neighborhood abandoned centuries ago. But these are not homes. They are tombs. More than 2,000 years ago, the Lycians carved this necropolis directly into the mountain. They believed the soul continued its journey after death and needed a proper dwelling, not a pit in the ground, but a residence worthy of its earthly status. So they designed entire cliffside chambers for the dead, complete with columns, relief carvings, and carefully constructed interiors. The higher the tomb, the more important the person buried within it was believed to be. Status followed them into stone. One of the most striking structures is often called the Lion Tomb. Its facade is elaborate, almost regal, and inside stand 11 life-sized stone figures arranged with deliberate precision. Their carved eyes face inward toward a central sarcophagus. Archaeologists generally interpret these statues as symbolic family members or guardians meant to honor the deceased. Their posture suggests reverence, permanence, loyalty. Yet standing inside that chamber, surrounded by unmoving stone figures staring toward a coffin that has long since emptied, it's difficult not to sense something heavier in the air. Some alternative theories suggest the statues may represent attendants intended to serve the tomb owner in the afterlife, possibly even inspired by much older burial traditions in which servants were sacrificed to accompany elites beyond death. There is no firm evidence of sacrifice here, but the positioning of the figures continues to spark debate. As researchers documented the site over the years, another detail began to draw attention. Several tomb entrances show unusual signs of modification long after their original carving. Stone doorways appear to have been reinforced or resealed from within. In some cases, blocking stones are positioned in ways that suggest interior placement rather than external closure. That detail changes the narrative. Most tombs are sealed from the outside to protect the dead, but resealing from the inside raises uncomfortable questions. Was it a structural adjustment, a later ritual practice, or something else entirely? No clear records explain the alterations. The Lycians left inscriptions, but none describe a reason for internal sealing. Inside a few chambers, archaeologists also documented darkened patches along walls and ceilings, markings consistent with exposure to heat. Fire leaves traces, and these traces suggest burning occurred within enclosed spaces. That alone is unusual. These chambers were designed to be airtight once sealed. Sustained fire requires oxygen. How flames burned inside sealed stone rooms has never been fully clarified. Some researchers propose that brief ritual fires may have been lit before final closure, leaving residue that later observers misinterpreted. Others argue that the marks appear in places unlikely to have been part of ceremonial practice. Adding to the mystery are scattered reports of elevated radiation readings recorded near certain sections of the cliff. Natural rock can emit low levels of radiation depending on mineral content, and limestone formations sometimes produce variations. Still, the measurements in specific areas were higher than expected background levels. No official report has labeled the readings dangerous, and geological explanations remain the most probable cause. Yet the anomaly lingers in site notes and field discussions without a definitive public conclusion. Below the necropolis, at the foot of the cliffs, stands the Church of St. Nicholas. For centuries, Christian worshippers gathered there, unaware, or perhaps very aware, that thousands of ancient dead rested directly above them in the mountain. The layering of belief systems is striking. Pagan Lycian tombs carved in the 4th and 5th centuries BC, Christian liturgy echoing below them centuries later. Two worlds, separated by time, sharing the same ground. The necropolis itself was designed to resemble a living city. Its facades mimic wooden Lycian houses, complete with beams and architectural details carefully reproduced in stone. The intention seems clear. Death was not an ending, but a relocation. The soul moved into another dwelling, elevated physically and spiritually above the world of the living. And yet, the evidence of resealed doors and interior alterations complicates that peaceful interpretation. Something changed after the original burials. Whether it was ritual evolution, fear of tomb robbers, structural reinforcement, or a response to events lost to history, the stone records a second chapter that no inscription fully explains. Standing beneath the cliffs today, you can see row upon row of dark openings cut into the rock, silent and unmoving. They resemble windows, but they reveal nothing. Whatever happened inside those chambers, whatever prompted doors to be reinforced from within or fires to burn in airless rooms, remains locked behind stone that has endured for 2 millennia. Myra is often described as one of the most beautiful necropolises in the ancient world. Its design is elegant. Its craftsmanship is extraordinary. Its symbolism reflects a culture deeply invested in the dignity of the afterlife. But woven into that beauty are details that refuse easy answers. Doors that appear to have been closed from the inside. Chambers marked by unexplained heat. Measurements that do not perfectly align with expectations. History gives us dates, names, and architectural context. What it does not always give us is motive. And in places like Myra, carved high into a cliff face overlooking the sea, it is the unanswered motive that lingers longest. Where the earth swallows the living, beneath the rolling hills of Kentucky, lies a world most people never see. Mammoth Cave stretches for more than 360 miles underground, making it the longest known cave system on Earth. Even now, new passages are still being mapped, but the deeper sections remain largely unexplored, not because they aren't interesting, but because they are dangerous. The tunnels narrow without warning. Ceilings dip low. Shafts drop into darkness. Some chambers hold pockets of toxic air where oxygen levels fall just enough to disorient anyone who lingers too long. In a place like that, it doesn't take much to lose your sense of direction. For thousands of years, long before modern explorers arrived with headlamps and survey tools, humans entered this cave system. Archaeological evidence shows that prehistoric Native Americans used portions of Mammoth Cave as early as 2000 BC. They mined minerals, sought shelter, and, in some cases, buried their dead there. The cave's dry and stable environment preserved what time would normally erase. Textiles survived. Footprints hardened in clay. And in several chambers, mummified bodies were found, naturally preserved by the underground climate. Some of those remains rest in positions that appear peaceful. Hands folded, limbs arranged, no signs of struggle in the surrounding earth. Archaeologists believe these individuals may have entered the cave intentionally at the end of their lives, possibly as part of ritual practices we only partially understand. The idea of willingly walking into darkness is difficult to grasp today, but ancient cultures often viewed caves not as empty voids, but as sacred thresholds, places where the surface world met something deeper. One discovery, however, unsettled even experienced researchers. Deep within the system, explorers found the remains of a man crushed beneath a rock, weighing nearly 2 tons. The stone appeared to have fallen suddenly, pinning him in place. What drew attention was his posture. He was kneeling, his body leaned forward as if reaching into a narrow crevice when the ceiling above gave way. There were no obvious signs of panic in the surrounding area. No scattered tools, no attempt to flee. Some researchers believe he may have been mining minerals when the rock collapsed. Others suggest he could have been attempting to access a passage that was unstable from the beginning. Whatever the reason, the cave sealed his fate in an instant. For centuries, he remained exactly where he fell, hidden in darkness until modern explorers rediscovered him. Stories surrounding Mammoth Cave don't stop with archaeology. Native American oral traditions speak of powerful presences that dwell beneath the earth. Some elders describe the cave system as a place where spirits traveled, where the boundary between the living and the dead grew thin. Certain chambers, according to tradition, were not meant to be entered casually. They were places of transition and respect. Modern explorers sometimes report experiences that are harder to document, sounds that echo differently than expected. Faint whisper-like tones carried through narrow corridors by shifting air. In a cave system, this vast acoustics can play tricks on perception. Air moving through tight rock passages can produce tones that resemble voices. Yet when you are alone, deep underground, with only the sound of your own breathing for company, even natural explanations can feel distant. The deeper truth about Mammoth Cave is not that it is haunted or cursed, but that it reminds us how little of the world beneath our feet we truly understand. The mapped sections represent only part of the system. Some corridors are too unstable to enter safely. Others disappear into cracks, too narrow for human bodies. Beyond them may lie empty stone, or chambers that have remained untouched for thousands of years. When placed alongside other sites across the world, a pattern begins to emerge. In Ireland, a stone structure shifts where it should remain still. In Scotland, a pyramid stands silent among trees, its geometry echoing much older forms. In Turkey, tombs carved into cliffs show signs of being sealed from within. And here in Kentucky, the earth preserves the dead exactly as they were, as if holding a memory that refuses to fade. Across continents and cultures, people have always turned to stone and earth when confronting mortality. They carved into mountains. They built monuments aligned with the sky. They descended into caves to mine, to bury, to seek meaning. The surface world feels permanent to us, but it is only a thin layer above vast networks of rock, pressure, and time. We build cities, highways, and monuments above ground, and assume we understand the terrain beneath them. Yet Mammoth Cave alone proves how much remains hidden. Hundreds of miles of passages run quietly below farms, forests, and towns. In those dark corridors, ancient footprints still mark the clay floor. Torches once flickered against limestone walls, and bodies rest in the exact positions they held thousands of years ago. The stone does not forget. It holds impressions of every step, every ritual, every life that passed through it. Sometimes those memories are discovered by accident. A fallen rock revealing a kneeling figure, a shaft of light exposing a chamber long sealed. Other times, they remain where they are, beyond reach, beyond mapping. The earth is not empty beneath us. It is layered with histories we are still uncovering. And in places like Mammoth Cave, where the tunnels stretch farther than anyone once believed possible, the sense lingers that we have only traced the edges of something much larger. Because for every passage we map, another disappears into darkness, and whatever lies beyond it has been waiting there far longer than we have.